Okay, this video, we actually did the entire lab in class. And what I'm doing is kind of stopping for a little bit and making sure that everybody can factor and practice factoring. And when I originally made this lab, I called it splitting the middle. But as I talk to students and their factoring prowess, I see that people need to practice this. So I'm going to actually cross off where it says splitting the middle. And we're going to just practice factoring. So the first thing I want you to know about factoring is most people are comfortable with a 1 in front of the x squared. None of these have a 1 in front. So let me explain how this works. So basically, this is kind of a guessing and checking way, but there is a method to it. So first of all, I want to remind you that if I multiply a positive times a positive in two parentheses, it yields a positive number. If I multiply negative times a negative, that yields a positive number. So you kind of have two choices if your last number is positive. And I'll explain to you that in a minute. If your last number is negative, that means my signs are different. So I could have a positive times a negative, and that would mean I'd have a negative outcome or a negative number that yields a negative number, or a negative times a positive. So my signs are opposite in that case. So basically, when we factor, I usually have a couple rules. And my first rule is I always check with my eyeball first and to see if I can find a greatest common factor. If I can't, then I try with two parentheses for factoring. All right, so I'm going to start with each one. I'm going to kind of walk you through. The answers are online, but I want to make sure that you're comfortable with this. So the first one is I always tell my students to circle the first term and circle the last term, because these are what determine what's in the parentheses. And before I did that, I should have actually checked to make sure, is there a greatest common factor? And even though I can take an X out of these two, I can't on the last one. So then I look at the first term and say, all right, so what in the first circle determines the beginning of the parentheses, and the last circle determines what's in the end of the parentheses. So I say to myself, how did I get 2x squared? Well, that's 2x times x. Then I look at my last circle and I say, okay, that's negative. So this is going to be up here where the signs are different. So I know my signs are different, and my factors of 3 are 1 times 3. And I have to get a -5 in the middle. So basically, my larger number has to be by -5, which doesn't necessarily mean the 3, because we do have this 2 hanging out. So what I do is I try plugging them in here and practicing and trying positives and negatives. So I'll show you what I did. If I did like this, a +3 here, don't copy this down, and if I did a -1 here, because the signs are different. When I multiply this, I get 2x squared, and then when I multiply the last one, I do get a -3, but it's the middle that determines what it is. So I look at 2x times -1 is -2x plus 3x. That's a positive x. So that doesn't work. So I'm going to erase that and try it a different way and say, well, maybe if I put the 3 and the 1 in a different spot. So if I put the 3 and the 1 here, and then I said, wait a minute, this is 6 and 1. If I make this negative and positive, I'll get a -5. So 2x squared minus 6x plus 1x minus 3. So there I go. I have it factored. Let's try the next one. I can't pull anything out of it. I'm going to set it up as two parentheses. Circle, circle. 3x squared. How did I get that? 3x and x. What are my factors of 8? Well, I have 1 times 8 and 2 times 4. And I need to get a positive 10. So this is negative. So I know my signs are going to be different. So I'm up here again, but I have to have a positive 10. So then I tried looking at 1 and 8. And if I put an 8 here and a 1 here in these spots, I'd see that I'd get a 24 and a 1. That's too far away for 10. And if I go the other way and put a 1 here and an 8 here, there's no way I can subtract the 2 to get a positive 10. So then I'm going to try 2 and 4. So if I put 4 here, see how that's 12, the 3 times a 4? And then if I put the 2 here, that's a 2. So I have a 12 and a 2. So I'm thinking I'm going to make my bigger one positive. So that's 12 and this negative. So I have 3x squared plus 12x minus 2x. There's my 10x minus 8. So it's factored. All right, let's try this again. I have 2y squared plus 15y plus 7. I'm going to go through here and see, okay, can I factor this? And I said, well, I can't pull anything out, so I'm going to set up for 2 parentheses. And I'm going to do the circle, circle thing. So now, how do I get 2y squared? 2y and a y. That's a positive 7, so I know my signs are the same. They're either plus plus or minus minus. I look in the middle. It's a positive 15, so I know they're both positive. That's easy. Then I have my 2 factors of 7. Now, I have to get a 15. So I said to myself, if I stick a 7 here, that's 2y times 7. There's 14y plus 1y is 15y. So you got to kind of play around with the out. I call it the OI factoring, the outer and the inner. You multiply the outer, multiply the inner, add them up and see if that's what you get in the middle. All right, let's try another one. Okay, 7a squared minus 11a plus 4. I say to myself, there's nothing I can pull it all out. I'm going to see if I can factor this. Circle, circle. All right, 7a squared, how'd I get it? 7a times a. Then I have a positive 4, so I know my signs are plus plus or minus minus. I look in the middle, oh, they better both be negative. Now my factors of 4 are 4 times 1 or 2 times 2. So you have to kind of play around to see which ones are going to work. So I tried 2 and 2 at first, so watch. When I did that, I got a negative 14 and a negative 2. That's negative 16. That's a negative 11. Oh, that's not going to work. And when I switch it, I'm going to get the same thing. So the 2 and 2, I really couldn't use. So I'm going to erase that and say, okay, I can't use the 2 times 2. So I'm going to try 4 and 1. So I'm like, okay, where can I put everything? So I'm thinking if I stick a 1 here, 1 times 7 is 7, and a 4 here, 7, a negative 7 and a minus 4 is a negative 11, so it's factored. Okay. I'm going to do a couple more, and then you can practice this. The answers are online, but I just wanted to make sure that you were comfortable doing this. So I can't take anything out. I'm going to factor, circle, circle. How'd I get 4y squared? Now this one's a little bit different because I could have a 1y and a 4y, or I can have a 2y times a 2y. So in all honesty, I always try the 2y and the 2y first. And then if that doesn't work, I'll try something else. Then I look at this last circle, and it's a positive 3, so I know my factors are 3 times 1, and it's positive. I look in the middle, that's positive, so I know these are both positives. And then it doesn't really matter where I put the 3 and the 1 because there's 2 y's in here. I have 4y squared plus 2y plus 6y. There's my 8y plus 3. Let's do one more. I'll change the color a little bit. Circle, circle. So this is kind of like the guess and check method. How'd I get 3x squared? 3x times x. This is a negative 7, so I know my signs are different. So my factors are 7 and 1, and I have to get a 4 in the middle. Well, as you keep doing this, you're thinking, I don't want to put the 7 over here because I've got to multiply it by the 3. I'd get a 21. So I'm going to put the 7 here and the 1 here, and then I check it. Well, that's 3x, 7x, and the bigger number should be positive, and this should be negative because I know my signs are different. Let's try it. 3x squared minus 3x plus 7x, that's plus 4x minus 7. So basically, this is practicing with your factoring so that you're not so intimidated if you have something that is not a 1 in front of your x squared. So I'm going to do a couple more. There's a back to this for you to practice, and we actually did the entire thing in class, and I've had kids go, I finally get factoring. Thank you so much. So that's why I'm doing this. Here's this one. 2x squared plus 13x plus 15. Can't factor everything out, so I'm getting my parentheses up there. Circle, circle. How'd I get 2x squared? 2x times x. Then 15, my factors are 1 times 15 and 3 times 5. I don't know why. I just kind of go to the 3 and 5 because the 15, I know if I put it here, I'd get a 30. It's big. If I put the 15 here and a 1, I'd get a 15 and a 13. But since this is positive, I know my signs are the same. And they both better be positive. So the 15 and the 1 I can't really use because I would get too big of a number. So then I use a 3 and a 5. So I put the 5 here because that makes a 10. I put the 3 here. That's a 3. 10 plus 3 is 13. So that is factored. And the last one I'm going to do on this video, just for practice, is I'm going to do number 8. So I'm going to set it all up. Circle, circle. Oh, here we go. I have a 9y squared. So 9y could be 9 times 1 or 3 times 3. Again, I always try this first. Then if it doesn't work, I'll try the other. This is a -8, so I know my signs are different. And my bigger number has to go by the positive to make a +6. So I have 1 times 8 and 2 times 4. So I'm just going to kind of play around with those numbers in here. And I look and say, well, I'm thinking if I put a 4 here, that'd be 3 times 4 is 12. Then a 2 here, 2 times 3 is 6. If I make this positive, that's a +12 and a -6, then I will get a +6 in the center, in my middle term. So there is some practice. This back, I would encourage you to do these on your own. The answers are there just to see, can you do these? And are you comfortable with factoring? And it's kind of, I don't know if there's a name for this. I call it guessing and checking, but it's like, this is how I learned how to factor. And I just wanted to share that with you. So that's the end of this video. I hope to see you in class.